My name's Ed Weinberger, and this is Ed Asner. We're co-authors of this book. And unlike Joel Osteen, who is going to be here in 2 days, we will read from the book. And that's the point of this, the music stands and these big binders, which are in big print for both of us. So. And I think pretty much as we go through, you'll get an idea of what the book is. I'm sure that very few have read it by now. But why don't we, and then we'll do the Lou Grant and the Mary Tyler Moore Show in the Q&A, if that's okay. And then we'll open the floor up for talk. Yeah. So the first chapter of the book is why Mr. Asner wrote this book.
We wrote this book.
All right, we wrote it, but we're going to do it in the first person for now. So chapter 1.
Oh, ye that love mankind, ye that dare oppose, not only the tyranny, but the tyrant, stand forth. This is a good time of our history. You said that, isn't it?
Amen.
Thomas Paine, Common Sense, 1776. Nobody thumps the Constitution like a right-wing Republican. Conservatives love the Constitution, invoking its very name, even more than the Bible and Ronald Reagan. As all the proof that they need that God is on their side. It's not enough that they think they own the Constitution. They act as if they wrote the damn thing. The Constitution is the cornerstone of the Republican Party's agenda, along with small government, less regulation, and making sure the rich pay less taxes. Why?
Microphone, can't hear you in the back.
Here, use.
I've got it right here. Along with small government, less regulation, and making sure the rich pay less taxes than the rest of us. Republicans are supported by a phalanx of right-wing radio and TV hosts who wave the Constitution at us like so many brainwashed Chinese once lofted copies of Chairman Mao's Little Red Book. Mark Levin and Glenn Beck have made small fortunes publishing books that rewrite the Constitution to suit themselves. Rush Limbaugh's website once featured him beside a blow-up of the Constitution's preamble. A wide smile across his face, as if he had just scored a prescription for painkillers. Bill O'Reilly used to give away free copies of the Constitution with every purchase of his patriotic coffee mug. That was, of course, before he was fired from his television show, where he advocated family values on the one hand, while calling female employees and masturbating with the other. From Tea Party politicians to the Wall Street editorial board, all share the same distorted view. Progressives, with the aid of pinko academics and activist judges, have been on a century-long search to disfigure the Constitution, bend it to their own evil objectives, and undo the social order as ordained by our country's founding fathers. Give you some idea what I'm talking about. Here are some samples of quotes from their best and brightest. I, as a constitutional conservative, as a believer in Jesus Christ, readily embrace Donald Trump's agenda. Michelle Bachmann, former Republican congressperson. If standing for liberty and standing for the Constitution make you a wacko bird, then you can count me a very proud wacko bird. Senator Ted Cruz. Wacko bird. You can go to our founding fathers' early documents and see how they crafted a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution that allows that Judeo-Christian belief to be the foundation of our lives. Sarah Palin, who is not who she once was. It is my number one duty as a human being to earn an experiment in self-government every day by spotlighting cockroaches who violate their oath to the U.S. Constitution and wipe their ass with the U.S. Constitution. Ted Nugent, celebrity Trump supporter. And there are a hell of a lot more where that came from. Pissed off by the lies, and we were, misrepresentations, and outright horseshit, I decided it was time to strike back. Like Zorro. It was time to reclaim the Constitution. Besides, if the righties were wrong about everything else, and they are, like health care, climate change, and the corporate tax rate, they had to be wrong about the Constitution. First, I did my homework. I read the Constitution and the amendments, perused the Federalist and Madison's notes taken during the Constitutional Convention, surveyed the lives of the founders and framers, looked over the Supreme Court opinions of Antonin Scalia and Clarence Thomas, and even tried to digest Glenn Beck's book, The Original Argument, Mark Levin's The Liberty Amendments, and Dr. Ben Carson's A More Perfect Union. 3 of the best over-the-counter sleep aids on the market. To find out how the mind of a strict constructionist works, I also dipped into Ted Cruz's autobiography, what's the name of it?
A Time for Truth.
I try to forget it as well as him. A Time for Truth. A Time for Truth. And of course, he's got an option on it. A faith-based romance, A Time for Truth, a faith-based romance novel in which the hero falls in love with himself at an early age. Now here's a preview of what I came up with. The framers wrote the Constitution in order to form a strong central government, giving sweeping powers to Congress, not the states, and balanced by an equally strong executive branch. Nothing in the Constitution suggests, let alone enforces, the concepts of limited government, limited taxes, and limited regulations. That is an absolute interpretation. The framers were not divinely inspired. They were lawyers. Do you really know any divinely inspired lawyers? The only lawyer ever to be divinely inspired was Saul of Tarsus. When the framers wrote, "We the people," they meant themselves. They were the people. Most of the founders and framers were deists Theism is a religion that believes in a God who really doesn't give a shit. The framers did not hate taxation. They needed taxes desperately. They had a war to pay off. And to be strictly honest, if they didn't have the taxes, they wouldn't have a pot to piss in. A strict constructionist is someone who selects portions of the Constitution to justify already held beliefs. Under the Constitution, women had the same rights as the Chickasaw Indian. The Constitution is as good as the people who swear to protect it. Now, the rest of what I learned, you have to buy the book. I know what you're thinking. Why me of all people, graced by such a God as this, to get to work with him and all that? Why am I writing a book about the Constitution? Well, why not me? After all, I have played some of the smartest people ever seen on television.
And that's chapter 1. All right, point.